What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the GC Hammer Show. That's Jack Hammer. I'm Grant Cohn. That's the GC Hammer. You could call this show today the quarterback show because we're talking just quarterbacks today. Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold, even our dear friend, good friend of the show, Jimmy Garoppolo, who we wish nothing but the best now that he's on his next leg of his journey in Las Vegas. First, we got to talk about Trey Lance, though. He's the news of the day. Matt Barrows, OG on the beat. Jack knows him. I know him. Wrote a really good article today in The Athletic talking about Trey Lance. Interviewed the coach that Lance is working with, new coach, Jeff Christensen, Mahomes' coach. Ironically, Jimmy Garoppolo's coach. What were your takeaways from this article, Jack?
It's all positive. You know, the first time you see a quarterback coach talk about somebody that's worked with in a negative light, that's going to be the first time you've seen that, because they're not going to go on there and say, yeah, I worked with this guy for 2 months and he still sucks. That's not going to happen.
He said he used to suck, but I coached him, right? He's like, man, it took me 4 days to figure out what the hell he was doing, man. And his arm was like in pain. Like, yeah.
Right.
He's like, but I saved him. I'm really good. I'm that guy. You know what do you want?
Yeah. But the cool part about it, the good part is that what Christensen said in terms of the upgrades that he sees from Trey Lance matches what we've heard from the team itself. Kyle Shanahan has talked about this just last week. I think it was during the Dwight Clark event. He talked about Lance being as good as he's been since the 49ers had him. And so that's a good, it's all trending in the right direction for Trey Lance. And I think it's a huge positive at this point. We'll see how it goes moving forward.
Right. And it's interesting the way they talk about Lance. Like, he's the best since he's been here. The quarterback coach says he's 25% better than I expected he would be. Like, that doesn't say how good he is. It's all relative to an expectation or where he was or whatever. Still, it's positive. And I think it's fair. If you want to be skeptical here, you say, is this good news for Trey or good news for the 49ers? To me, it's definitely good news for Trey. He's still young. Hopefully he has the rest of his career. If he doesn't fix this, he doesn't have a career. So this makes me feel like he might have a long career in the NFL. From the Niners' perspective, well, we wasted 2 years of your rookie deal, and we're running out of time. And if you just started with this quarterback coach, I mean, it's not going to be ingrained. Like, now, it could take 3 years. It took Aaron Rodgers 3 years on the bench with Mike McCarthy, and he's like the most talented thrower of a football in the history of Homo sapiens. Unless there were some guys slinging it back in the day that we don't know about. I'm just saying, since a pigskin was invented, that's the dude. And it took him like 3 years to learn exactly what he's doing. So this might take Trey Lance a while before he masters it, if he masters it. And the Niners don't have that kind of time. That being said, it's better than nothing.
No, it's definitely it's a huge positive. The only if you're it's a huge positive that he is doing well. That's what you're hoping for at this point of the year. It's much better that you're hearing positive reports than negative reports. And I don't think we're going to see anything negative necessarily about Trey Lance. We might see a little bit, but it's not going to be overly negative until we get to July and August. Once you start having real bullets flying, I think that's going to be when we're going to know more about Trey Lance at that point. Once he has people that we know he knows he can't be hit, but once he needs to start moving around and he's got people in front of him and there's chaos all around him, does everything he's working on stay together, or does it start to fall apart a little bit? I think that's the biggest thing to look at here for Trey Lance.
No doubt. But I think also the big takeaway from this article was the arm fatigue thing.
Yes.
What's so interesting too is, like, it was reported last year by Mike Silver. Credit to Mike Silver. And then a lot of people, including me, were like, I didn't know about it. I didn't see this. I was there. What are you talking about? And then we asked the Niners, and they were like, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't really know what you're talking about. And then now they're like, oh, yeah, like, there was arm fatigue. But don't worry about it. He fixed it. And it's not an issue anymore. It's like, okay, well, you told us it wasn't an issue last year. Then now you're telling us it was an issue, but it's not anymore. It's like, excuse me if I want to trust my own eyes on this one, but, like, if they're saying that arm fatigue is no longer an issue, like, that's key, because this guy's screwed if he has to literally ice down his arm every 4 days. You can't do that. He's going to get hurt.
No, you can't. And I saw, I saw it on my timeline on Twitter. There was you would this is going back, and you talked about, if you want to read mechanics and know about mechanics, to follow Jeff Christensen. And in that thread what was interesting, I kind of looked down, and there was one where he talks about how important the lower body is to your throwing.
Yep.
And if you're an arm thrower, which I think you've said before, and we both talked about how Trey Lance is primarily an arm thrower and very violent with his arm. If he has been able to get more of that is coming from his legs,
correct,
that's going to help with the accuracy because there's not as much effort going into the throw. And so, it's all
your arm shouldn't be there for power. It should be there for accuracy and guidance and all that stuff. Yep.
Yeah. And he's right on that. Your power as a quarterback comes from your legs, and then you got to have a strong arm.
Your wrist flick.
Yeah, well, that's really where the spiral comes from. You've got to get that. He talks about full extension, and with Christensen on his full extension, it's a little bit more out to the side, and you see it. But it's really even if the quarterback doesn't get it there, it's about getting that hand all the way out in front, getting the flick of the wrist down, and all that kind of stuff. The pronation of the wrist is where the spiral comes from. So, it's good stuff, and I'm just excited to see what Trey Lance does, and can he, can he fulfill the potential? Can he fulfill all the things that the 49ers thought they were going to get when they traded up to him at number 3? I mean,
and how long will that take?
Yeah, because they're in this. You brought it up. This is the year, because it's tough with his salary situation after this year. It can become a little tough for the 49ers.
Like, what if he makes strides and it looks better, but he hasn't mastered it, and they have to decide at the end of the year, do we pick up his 5th-year option? And they say no. I mean, because it's like, it's such a hard thing. It's easy to say no, let him go. Like, okay, but what if he is just like by the time he's 25, he masters it, and you're like, damn, we were just impatient. But we held on to him for so long, but ultimately we weren't patient enough. Like, then you really kick yourself. So I feel like they're kind of like in a paralysis by analysis situation. Like, what do we do?
It's a really tough. You were talking with Jose a couple days ago. I didn't see the show. I responded to you on another, over on Twitter. But in terms of, like, if he comes out and he has a great, let's say he comes out this season and he's the starting. He wins a starting quarterback job and he plays terrific.
And they win.
And they win. And let's say they go all the way.
But they lose in the playoffs.
Yeah, let's say they
to
lose
the Cowboys.
Just to make it easy. Let's say they lose the NFC Championship game or
to the Cowboys. Yeah.
Do you then pick up his 5th-year option and then say, which is going to be $22 million in 2025?
Or do you say Brock would have won and Brock's coming back? It's a tough one.
It's the Jimmy Garoppolo mistake, right?
Exactly.
Because you're rewarding. Because I don't think it's going to be tough. I think if you let this whole thing run out and then you get to the point after 2024 where you haven't picked up his 5th-year option, now you're in a really tough situation, because then at that point he's going to be even more to keep him from going to another team. So this is a big year.
Same thing could happen with Darnold too. You talk about the Jimmy Garoppolo mistake. Say Darnold plays, wins, goes to the playoffs, loses. All of a sudden, are you going to give him an extension because?
Yes.
Because he turned his career around and he played well for a month or 2 or 3. Come on. That's the same thing.
No, absolutely. Yeah. It's both those guys fall into that same category. Mm-hmm.
Nico says, hey, Grant, thanks for reminding Kyle that quarterback mechanics should be a concern for a head coach instead of just making sure the ball is going to the right spot. Yeah, what I don't understand is, like, how did it take, like, you draft a quarterback needs a mechanical overhaul. You acknowledge that, like, you don't really have what it takes to do that, but you can outsource that. How did it take you until the 3rd offseason to find the right coach? How did that happen? Why were the last 2 years thrown away? I guess injuries were part of it, but from what we're hearing, like, the 3D QB guys just weren't getting results with Trey for whatever reason, and now he's bought in with Jeff Christensen. Like, man, this should have been happened. Like, what? To me, I don't know.
You got to remember, he came in for rookie minicamp. There were some things that they felt like he needed to improve on. He went away from the team. He went out to work. It wasn't with the 3DB guys. It was with the other guys that he'd worked with.
Quincy Avery, right?
Yeah, Quincy Avery and Sean McAvoy. That's who he worked with. Mm-hmm. They came back, and according to the 49ers, they felt like he was really good. They really liked what they saw of him in training camp, right? But then think about it. What caused his mechanics to get if it's a mechanical problem? It's the finger that happened at the end of training camp in the final preseason game. Right? I mean, it messed everything up. That's what Shanahan talked about the other day.
Probably created a bunch of bad habits. Because once you overcompensate for one thing, all of a sudden, God knows what happens to your kinetic chain there.
Yeah, and according to what he said, it sounded like it was still bothering him last year. So, maybe this is him getting back to where he was when he went in for his rookie season, and
Right.
And we'll see.
And keep in mind, like, Trey Lance has always had messed up mechanics. He's always needed to do this. But he still found a way to complete 66% of his throws. Like, yes, he was on a stacked team, but, like, he's on a stacked team now. Like, the whole idea is, like, he was a game manager in college who ran. Like, he should be able to do that, too. He should be able to hit the checkdowns. He should be able to hit the slants and the screens because he did that in college. I mean, his passing chart showed that he was a little spotty down the field, but that hasn't been the issue on the Niners. The issue has been the layups. I don't think that was as big of an issue for him in college. Otherwise, you can't complete 66% of your throws on any level if you can't hit a screen, if you can't hit layups. So he did it. I mean, he should be able to do it now on a really good team if he's healthy, but he's just another one of a million quarterbacks in this team who hasn't been able to stay healthy. So he has a lot to prove there too, or the Niners have a lot to prove there.
Yeah, and we'll see how that goes. A lot of the discussion around Trey Lance has been the potential and the possibility that he can take this team further than Brock Purdy, and that's why a lot of people want to see what he can do. And we'll see. He's going to show us one way or another. I think he'll give us a good idea of that during OTAs, minicamp, training camp, and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see where this plays out for Trey Lance. In terms of the completion percentage and all that kind of stuff, and changing your mechanics at this time in the game, we'll see if he can do it, and we'll see if he can. Like I said, we'll see if he can make it stick once the live bullets fly. Because that's going back to the Kyle Shanahan has talked about that in the past, saying that it's something that if you kind of are who you are at the age of 23, and so it'll be interesting to see here what happens with Trey Lance.
Right. I mean, I think it doesn't stick. It's like you improve incrementally, you get away from the coach, you backslide incrementally, you go back to the coach, and you do it for your whole career. And hopefully it works out for you. I mean, that's pretty much best case scenario. And that should be the expectation. Like, don't expect to see this guy throwing left-handed or something at OTA. It's not going to look way different. It's going to be, we'll film it in 4K, we'll slow it down, we'll see a few different things, but it's probably not going to look a whole lot different. And to your point, I mean, when it's pressure time, he'll revert. Everyone does. Everyone does. But
that's where it's going to be. That's where it's going to be interesting. I know, he had a high percentage of completions in college. We'll see what happens. It's just different in the NFL because it's a little bit more of a pressure cooker.
True, no doubt. And this is why the Niners sat him his rookie year. They wanted him to ingrain this before he went on the field. Well, that didn't work out because whatever reason. He had the wrong coach. He broke his finger, whatever. So you're here at year 3. He's only 23. You're having your first positive, result with this guy in a minute. Must be a big sigh of relief because this guy could be their week 1 starter. And last year they were calling plays like they really didn't believe in his arm.
It's interesting. I would say yes and no to that. I think they used him as more of a running threat and whatever part of it. The throws and stuff were very similar to what they've used with everybody else in terms of the overs and the wheel routes and the screens and all that kind of stuff. The passing game was very similar, but they like Trey Lance's skill set. Part of what attracted the 49ers to Trey Lance was his ability to run. So I think not using that ability to run is counterproductive to why you brought him in and what you thought he could do for your offense. And maybe it's about picking your spots better. We'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing the Trey Lance story play out this offseason.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing. Here's the way I look at it is like, it's Trey Lance hype week. Yes. It was Sam Darnold hype month last month. And before then, it was Brock Purdy ace the S2. Have you heard of the S2? Let me tell you about the S2. And now he's going to be. And so it just seems to me, if I can be real cynical and step back, the Niners are somehow hyping up all of their quarterbacks because they don't freaking know which one's going to end up being good. And now, if anyone emerges, they can be like, boom, we saw it coming. Did you read that article? Oh, yeah. It's like, yeah, man, you've hyped up all your freaking. When is the Brandon Allen hype piece coming up next? I want to know.
That's coming up. That's coming up in 2 weeks.
It seems to me when you don't have a plan for something, you hype up all your possibilities. It's like we don't need a plan because literally every door we open works. So who cares? Like, good luck.
And that's kind of where the 49ers were last year.
Good luck.
Right? They did it with 3 different guys. So we'll get to Jimmy Garoppolo later.
Well, do it again. Joey Mellon says, "What is your Spotify music playlist called?" Hold on, let me find it and I'll drop it in the chat box. I'll get back to you on that. I'll do it during the show. Justin Lomker says, so what I'm hearing is one play Trey is no more. One play Trey. Wonder who started that. God. Sometimes it's your own teammates. Mark, thank you very much. All right, let's talk about Brock Purdy. So Brock Purdy, I'm trying to think of like a fair comparison for Brock Purdy without underselling him or overselling him. We've heard everything from like Taylor Heineke to Joe Montana. There's got to be a middle ground here. There's got to be a middle ground that most people can agree on. So I have one, and I'm trying not to piss off Niner fans with this one. So I think, this is a starting quarterback who's had a lot of success. I'm going to compare him to Tua. Here, let me make the case. They're in the same system, essentially. Tua had some struggles in the league, but last year he had a really good team around him, and he went on an 9-game heater before he played the Niners, where, God, he had 19 touchdowns, 3 picks, 115 rating, just as hot as any quarterback in the league. But then he played the Niners, and he looked like he was freaking terrified. He looked like he was afraid of getting hurt, never really recovered. And with him, like, the question still remains, like, can you stay healthy? Like, you really are kind of small. Like, are you really the guy in Miami? Or is it the team around you? Like, yeah, like, you can put up big numbers and they can win with you, but, like, are you really the guy? And then I think with Brock, he had 9 games last year. It was great. He was 8-1, like Tua. He had a 111 rating. Like, yeah, he was hot. He put up great numbers. Same questions. Like, can you stay healthy? Can you really overcome your all the reasons that you were the last pick in the draft? Can you really overcome that and become a starting quarterback who stays on the field for 17 games a year? It's like, I don't know. But is calling Tua someone like a right-handed Tua like that big of a pejorative after the season Tua just had? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see enough of Tua to really say it. What we saw, the little bit we saw of him getting ready for the 49ers game.
Oh, that wasn't good. But we never saw Brock against the Niners. And we saw him against the Cowboys and the Eagles, and it wasn't great.
Well, we didn't. Yeah, we saw 6 plays against the Eagles. But, just kind of overall, it was one of those things. I don't know. Tua, I don't think you could call him whoever. Tua would be one. I've seen him compared to not a guy that's playing currently, but the old Vikings quarterback, Christian Ponder. I've seen him be compared to
Christian Ponder. Not fair. That's not nice.
Christian Ponder had like a 6-0 start to his career or something like that out in Minnesota.
Although Christian came into the league with a messed up arm, so I don't know. He had a messed up shoulder at Florida State, if I remember correctly. Why do I know that? I don't know.
So I don't. We'll see for Purdy. It's all about. Is he able to throw? Is he able to throw at the same level that he was prior to the injury? Because other than that, as long as he hasn't gotten gun shy over one play, I think he can come back and just step right in and do everything that he did before. As long as his arm is healthy and his mindset's correct, I don't see why he can't come in and be just as efficient and move the team just as well as he did last year. And yeah, it's an all-star team.
Sure.
Christian McCaffrey said that. So I think he could get them there. I think the 49ers if the 49ers had gotten past Philadelphia, the 49ers and Chiefs in the Super Bowl would have held the matchup.
I just think it's interesting that like people kind of forgot the reasons that Jimmy Garoppolo got pushed out. Jimmy Garoppolo had great numbers last year. In particular, he won a lot of games. It ultimately wasn't good enough. And the number one reason they said that he couldn't be their starting quarterback is that he wasn't durable enough.
Right.
Wasn't durable enough. And now you got Brock, who is a lot like Jimmy. Neither one pushes the ball more than 25 yards down the field that much. They're mostly 25 yards, and then Brock moves a whole lot better. But he got hurt too. He got hurt in his first start. He got hurt in his 8th start. We do not know if he's the kind of guy who can make it through year after year, the Iron Man that you need to have as a starting quarterback. He could just be a younger, more mobile, cheaper Jimmy in the sense that not durable enough. Trey too. Trey could be a bigger, younger, faster. If Jimmy isn't here because of the durability, then that's the question with Trey. It's the question with Brock. It's the question with Darnold. He's never played 16 games in a year. And until they find that guy, they're in trouble, man. They're always going to be in this limbo.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the quarterback's fault. I don't know.
I think with Garoppolo, it's a couple of things. Part of it was the inability to stay healthy. Part of it was how much are you paying this guy to to give you this performance. And when you're paying him, whether it's, let's just take the injury part out of it. Let's just stick with why are we paying this guy $27 million, $26 million
to be mediocre
to do this? When even you look at, because they've said this, having a guy on a cheaper deal helps the rest of the team out. If Brock Purdy can give you Jimmy Garoppolo plus, and you feel like you're a Super Bowl winning team with Jimmy Garoppolo or caliber winning team with Jimmy Garoppolo, you continue to build your roster, and you got a guy for the next 3 years that's going to be less than $1 million. That's one way of doing it.
I just want to point out though that Jimmy Garoppolo plus was a 107 rating compared to Jimmy's 103. And I know I say 111 when you add in the playoffs too. So that's something, because Jimmy's quarterback rating tanks in the playoffs.
Well, I think that's the other thing too, is that there was if the 49ers brass is high on him, it's not just because of what he did in the regular season, but the game against Seattle and the game against Dallas, those were as good of playoff performances as you've seen from a 49ers quarterback since Colin Kaepernick in 2013. So, and I think that plays a part in it as well.
Yeah, but at the same time, we can't overhype that Dallas game. That was 19 points. That was 0 touchdown passes. Like, he didn't, it was a mature game. He managed the game. He didn't lose the game. He didn't make the big mistake that Dak made 3 times. But at the same time, it's not like he lit up a great defense,
No,
he held serve.
No, you're right. But in the playoffs, you don't go back and check out Steve Young's stats in the playoffs. He did there. It's very rare that he lit up defenses in the playoffs. He had some big time throws in those games, but in terms of like lighting them up, like big numbers and those kind of things,
I seem to remember him putting up 6 touchdown passes on the Chargers.
Well, yeah, but the Chargers weren't. The actual Super Bowl in 1994 was beating the Cowboys, right? But I'm talking about just over the course of his career. He had that. Obviously, there's going to be good games for everybody. Brock Purdy had 332 yards against Seattle in the wild card game. But whatever. I'm just saying, in the postseason, it's about managing the game and making the throws when you need to. A couple of them, the throw to Kittle's kind of a lucky one, but he made plays when he needed to make them.
No, he was. I mean, for sure, he was one of the reasons they won. Definitely. I mean, yeah, he was one of the reasons they won. All I'm saying is, he had a hot streak of 9 games. So did Tua. He's gotten injured a couple times. So is Tua. I mean, I like him, but I'm not saying like, well, if it's not him, it's Brock. I have questions about Trey. I got questions about Brock. I mean, I think the Niners want fans to believe that one of the franchise quarterback is somewhere in this quarterback room. What if he's not? What if he's not?
And that'll be
year 7.
to see. Yeah,
because that's the thing. Like, if he's not and it's year 7, like, Niner fans should be pissed. No matter how good the team is, it feels like you're spinning your wheels here. But the Niners don't want you to think that. It's like, oh, don't worry, we got 3 franchise quarterbacks. Who needs 1 when you could have 3 and pay none of them? Like, really? That's the situation you create? No, really, you have 3 question marks at quarterback. The one constant, the one guy you had that you knew would take you to the playoffs every year, is in Vegas. And so now you're in a situation where you don't know that you're going to make the playoffs this year. You can't just assume that. If Brock comes back and is everything he was last year, then sure. But is that going to happen? I mean, when is he coming back? When's his first rep of 11 on 11 is going to be? I'd love to know.
Yeah, no, we'll see. I mean, the question mark is there. The question mark is definitely there, and that's part of what makes this whole thing. It's wild that it's part of what makes the 49ers quarterback discussion room such a fun discussion to have. But also the fact that both the 2 guys that we've talked about so far are in the top 15 of the odds for winning NFL MVP. What does that say about the 49ers as a whole too? You got 2 quarterbacks on the 49ers that can win the MVP.
Yeah, you have people saying the Niners have like the best offense in the league, they're the best team in the league, and they're like, okay, well, who's their quarterback? I don't care. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's like, wow, the Niners are turning the NFL on their head. Forget what you thought you knew. It's a quarterback-driven league. Not in Santa Clara. It's like, yeah, I think it is. But hey, maybe Sam Darnold is the guy who takes off. Maybe Trey Lance takes off. Maybe Brock Purdy just flies in a cape and is like, I'm back, guys. Like, I don't know. But I don't know. It just,
of the 3, we've seen Brock Purdy do it. I know it's a short sample size. We've seen him do it, right? We haven't seen it from Lance yet, but Lance has only got 4 starts, but only 3.25 games or whatever, roughly. And then you've got Sam Darnold, who has not done it in San Francisco and has done it in very sporadic glimpses here and there, with a lot of bad around it. So we'll see.
Here's what I would do if I were Kyle. Because again, the minute people think that this quarterback room is 3 lemons, I think you're in trouble. Because it's the most important room, and you can't just fumble this room like year after year after year. So what he should do is, honestly, don't play Brock this year. Say Brock's our franchise quarterback. We love Brock. He's just not ready. So we're going to play Trey and see what you got. And if it doesn't work out with Trey or with Darnold, you can always say, man, Brock's coming back next year. Don't relax, everyone. It was a down year. But if you bring Brock back and he doesn't have an off season and he goes out and plays and he's not good, well, you don't have that ace up your sleeve anymore. You don't have you could go through all 3 guys this year. All of them could struggle and you're like, damn, I'm exposed. This quarterback room isn't really what I was billing it to be. Just keep Brock, the hope of Brock, the fantasy of Brock. Hold that till 2024 unless that's what I would do.
That sounds a lot like the discussion with Trey Lance in 2021, where you just hold him back because if he goes out there and
that's what they did. Bad on you. That's exactly what they did in 2021. Don't worry about Jimmy because Trey's coming. Yes, don't worry about Trey and Sam because Brock's coming next year.
Right. Yes.
That's 4D chess. I don't care. JRod5 says, "Hey y'all, been a while. Been too broke to comment." Well, thanks to letting us know that you got $2, dude. That's great. J-Rod, I love you. Is that him in the Spider-Man costume? Or
I hope so. I hope so. He's wearing that spot.
Manny PSF 95 says, in season, you said Purdy's comp was Russell Wilson. I said he ran around like Russell Wilson, but he sure doesn't throw downfield like Russell Wilson. Pretty sure I didn't say he throws downfield like Russell Wilson. If he did, I'd be into him. That was one of the nice things about young Russell. Man, he threw a nice deep ball.
I threw the best. Yeah, he threw it was a beaut. That's how he beat the 49ers in the championship game that one.
He could miss all those intermediate throws or throws over the middle he'd miss a lot of them. But if he'd hit 2 deep throws a game, you're in trouble.
Be able to bring down
those are like turnovers. Those are like flip the field.
Yeah.
She prays. Mike says, hide the rest of the yams. Where Grant? I don't understand. See, I'm too old for these kids these days. Lamonte757 says, if we start Trey and run him off the start, what does that mean about Kyle? Also, how bad does Trey Lance have to be to pay Sam extra money to start? Number Deebo drops too many balls in Madden. Pause. Stop it, Deebo. What? Okay, wait. I don't know where you're going with that. Hold on. I don't think they're going to run Trey Lance like last year. I feel like they did that because they felt they needed to play him. If Trey Lance isn't wowing them, and he completes 54% of his throws in camp, they'll just start Darnold. That's what's going to happen. I think that this whole Trey Lance is a running back thing, you don't have to do that anymore. You're a backup quarterback. If they could just go with Darnold. So maybe that's something to be encouraged about, putting it out there.
Yeah. Or maybe it gives them more reason to run him if they don't feel like he's a starter. Just keep running the hell out of him.
You could say that's what they did last year, right? Official BNA Music 88 says Morgan Whalen tore his UCL in high school and had to quit baseball. Not saying Brock can't come back, but he's either going to do it or drop a hot mixtape. Yeah. I feel like from an organization perspective, what your job is to say, project confidence, but privately, you don't know. You just have to wait and see.
Yeah,
when is that key date coming up? 2 weeks? 3 weeks?
Yeah, June 2nd would be 12 weeks post surgery. But it's also it's different. There's a big difference here in that he's talking about baseball. There's a big difference between throwing a baseball and throwing a football. And I think for football players, it's a little bit easier to come back from this injury. Their time to return has proven to be better. Throwing a football is just not as hard on your arm as throwing a baseball. It's because the ball's heavier. Your arm can't be as quite as violent through the motion and all that kind of stuff. So it's different. We just saw a quarterback last week who is coming off of the same surgery. And we saw a really nice deep ball there to Jacob Pearson for a nice gain. And I think we saw a couple of them. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Now, keep in mind, Clayton Thorson isn't exactly on an NFL roster, but
no,
he could throw a football.
Yeah, what I'm saying.
His arm didn't fall off when he attempted passes.
We saw his ability to throw about a 45.
No, he did. He
threw a nice ball down the sideline.
He did.
His arm is.
He certainly did.
Was
but that's Clayton Thorson for you. He's always been that kind of a guy. It's just premium traits.
Well, he just hasn't got.
He's 27. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He needs to go.
He's not been treated terribly.
I thought Steven Montez was going to be impressive, but it was Clayton.
Yeah. Clayton was much more impressive.
J-Rod says, I got more than $2 now. Yeah, in my face. Boom. Thank you, J-Rod. I appreciate it.
But is that you in the Spider-Man costume? That's what we want to know.
R.I.P. Jim Brown. Are you serious?
I did not see this.
That's terrible.
That's too bad.
Jim Brown.
Never saw him play.
Jim Brown was definitely before my time. Never saw him play. Wow.
Yeah, before my time, too.
But I remember the legend about Jim Brown. Not only is he one of the 2 or 3 greatest running backs of all time. I mean, go back and check out his numbers. He was also, I think he's considered the greatest lacrosse player of all time. And he was so dominant at lacrosse, they had to change the rules. They used to be that you could play with your thumb over the ball. They had no problem with that. He was so freaking unstoppable. They're like, okay, you can't do that anymore. So Jim Brown.
Yeah. He was he didn't play for a very long time, but his numbers were awesome and did a lot of other things after his career. So
yeah, if you were to ask coaches in the NFL, really know the history, who are the greatest running backs at their peak? Like, not talking about full longevity, but just the guys who are the most devastating at their very best. Dude, he would be in the conversation as the number one all time. He would be in the conversation. Someone would say, what about Jim Brown? Look at his numbers.
Yeah, I think so. And just in terms of like that ability to run over people, run through people, all those types of things, like be a really good running back. I think, Jim Brown is top of the list. That's also where you get Bo Jackson and kind of get
Bo Jackson, Walter Payton, Barry Sanders. Those would be 4. Those would be 4 the greatest.
Walter Payton. It's amazing what he did when he was the offense. He was the offense for the Bears. He was the guy. The one year I think they made it to the playoffs, and he accounted for like over, I don't know, some ungodly percentage of their numbers.
Yeah, it was kind of like when Frank Gore was the offense with the Niners, except Walter Payton was just like twice as good, except for my time. But I'm just saying, you go back and look at his numbers too. But I think like of all-time freaks at the running back position, Jim Brown, Bo Jackson, Barry Sanders, Walter Payton, who somehow doesn't get enough credit, and I was watching Marshall Faulk highlights this morning. Whoa.
Yeah.
People forget how good Marshall Faulk was.
Yeah, wow. He was I remember him coming out of college, and it was another level.
Yeah, he was a top 10 pick, was he not? He ran a 4.3.
I don't remember where he came out, where he was when he came out in the draft, but I just remember watching him at San Diego State, and he just made defenses look silly.
And then he did that in the NFL too. Rest in peace, Jim Brown. Lamonte 757. Deebo drops too many passes, kills my Madden team. He does drop too many passes. Last year had me wondering, are you better as a running back or a wide receiver? I feel like last year you could say he was a better running back than wide receiver.
Last year, they didn't utilize him the same way last year. They utilized him more as a kind of a running back. They didn't really, in 2021, you saw him catching more balls down the field. Not deep down the field, but, those routes at about 10 to 15 yards in that range. This last year, it was mostly, we're going to throw you screens and we're going to run you.
I was like, what happened, man?
Yeah, they need to get, he had a lot of drops. He had a lot of drops in the beginning of 2021. He got better as the season went on with that. And last season, I
thought they would do more with him now that they paid him this money. They're doing less with him. It's like,
I agree. They need to get back to that downfield.
You're a wide receiver. Forget the running back stuff. They're good at running back. You play running back if everyone else is injured. Otherwise, they'll weigh 215, weigh 210 and play wide receiver. Jerry Rice was 210. Worked for him. Why you got to be 225?
Bigger, stronger.
I remember when Michael Crabtree got shut out by the Giants in the NFC Championship game. I believe Jerry Rice piped up afterward and was like, well, why does he weigh 215 pounds? Why does he need to be that big? I was 210. Well, maybe he should drop a little. It's like, tell him, Jerry. That wouldn't have helped.
Michael was that after the 2011 season when
I believe so.
He was the only wide receiver on the roster pretty much?
God. Yeah, because Ted Ginn got hurt.
Yes.
That's right. Jared McPeak says, hey, Grant, just want to show you some love. I appreciate everything you do to keep us informed. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Jared. That was so nice. Yes. Appreciate it. Now, J-Rod says, no, it's Tom Holland with waves. Should I recreate?
Yes.
No, I think that's cool. You can be Tom Holland. You should recreate it. Yeah.
We need J-Rod in the Spider-Man costume.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic.
Can you get a Spider-Man costume in May, or do you have to wait until you can get it? Amazon exists, right?
Yeah, Amazon exists. The internet. Come on, Grant.
Callie Tremor says Earl Campbell is in that combo
yes,
too.
Yes. Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I actually never saw Earl Campbell. A lot of people would also say O.J. Simpson, but again, I never saw him play. That special season.
I got cut on a dime. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
OJ.
Josh Wyatt says people are acting like the UCL is the only issue. Isn't the bigger issue that Brock's arm wasn't strong enough to begin with? Yeah, and again, like he got hurt running against the Bucs. He got hurt not stepping up in the pocket. Like, is he more durable than Jimmy? Because if not, then it doesn't really matter. Same thing with Trey. If none of these replacements are more durable than the undurable replacement, like it's all academic.
No, the UCL, in regards to this, it wasn't the arm strong, not strong enough to begin with. I'd say the answer to that's no. His arm was strong enough to make every throw the Flyers asked of him to make. That's in terms of.
It was about as strong as Jimmy's. Strong as Jimmy's. He was a little bit more accurate on the deep throws, a little bit more accurate. Although the ones he hit down the field, you kind of saw the receiver kind of turning and waiting.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I'm not gonna act like he's got a stronger arm than Garoppolo, but he's more accurate and he's more willing to throw it down the field than Garoppolo.
I think what we saw from Purdy, the main difference between him is you saw what a quarterback who's willing to use his legs and has a quick burst and a little creativity and wants to extend a play, like what that can do for an offense. It's a big deal. Yeah, and a quarterback who's planted to one spot really limits you, unless he's freaking Tom Brady.
Yeah,
what this kid is not. Excuse me. Grown man, Jimmy Garoppolo, basically my age. She prays. Mike says, "Let me down, Grant. Shake my head. You were supposed to finish the lyrics random. Who you got, Devin Haney or Vasily Lomachenko?" Wait, hold on. Lyrics? What are you talking about? I don't know who's gonna play. Oh, I don't know where to hide the yams. I'm sorry. I guess I'm just white today. It's a little extra Caucasian. Lamonte 757 says, we win game 1 versus the Bears if Deebo don't fumble and Huff stays in his place, not Trey's fault. First quarter versus Hawks was what Trey's stats. Play the kid now. The one thing I'll say with Trey is like, all those times you tried to make him be a dual threat quarterback, you lost. The one time you let him play quarterback and didn't make him do that much dual threat stuff, you won. So give him one more chance doing like with more of the Houston game plan than the Seattle game. Give him one more chance or two before you throw him out. I think they might. But there's Darnold too. I mean, maybe you want to give Darnold. Let's talk about Sam Darnold. I think it's interesting that Trey Lance has to compete with Sam Darnold because the way I look at it is they're awfully similar. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know Darnold's been in bad situations. Trey's been in good situations. But in terms of just, they're both third pick in the draft. They both are big guys who are smart and coachable. Everyone likes them from all reports. And they can make some wild plays. But just like Lance, it seems like Darnold really struggles with accuracy. I mean, look at his numbers. Even last year in his season where he turned things around, he completed 58% of his throws. His career completion percentage is below 60. So he's got a little bit of erratic accuracy, ball placement, and he's had issues with confidence and injuries. So, I mean, it seems like a fair competition. Like, hey, Trey, why don't you battle against someone who's 3 years older than you, who's been through a lot of the same stuff, and has a lot of the same strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities between these two guys. Just one guy's been in the NFL for a longer period of time, but in terms of their traits and the things that you look at, they're very similar. Darnold moves very well. He's got he's the best thrower of football on the planet, according to some, and but no, he does have. I mean, and that's it's not crazy. I think to say that he's a really good thrower of the football. That doesn't mean he's a great quarterback, but in terms
doesn't mean he's consistent.
No, absolutely not. That's
right.
Exactly. It doesn't mean any of the things that make you a good quarterback. You can be a great thrower of the football and be a terrible quarterback.
Right.
That happens with a lot of guys that are taken in the first round. So I don't know. We'll see. With Darnold,
Zach Wilson's a good example of that.
I think
great thrower of the football, terrible quarterback. Sorry, Zach Wilson.
No, you're absolutely right. That's he was fantastic in his pro day.
Who replaced Sam Darnold?
Nobody could spin around and throw a ball 60 yards in the other direction better than him. But you look at Darnold and Lance, and I think this is going to be an interesting competition to watch. And the way that I look at it, but I'm not putting the team together, is that if Lance and Darnold are on even playing field at the end of training camp or whatever your time frame is on this, then you go with Lance. because he's the younger
because you can
guy.
always go to Darnold. It doesn't crush Darnold's confidence if you bench. Like, he came in at the end of the season last year and did well. He did it last year.
Right. You can always go back to him. He can always be. The only way is if he just comes out and he completely blows everybody away, kind of like what we've been saying with Lance. If he has those guys blows your doors off, that's what I think where it's different. But
then the decision makes itself at that point, and you're just thanking God that one of these guys presented himself when you had no clue what to do, and you were thinking, are we going to have to go after Kirk Cousins next year? Do you think they've had that conversation? That's neither here nor there, but they might.
Yeah.
Anyway,
the Darnold thing is going to be fun to watch.
But I think a lot of people are like, man, it's not really a fair competition. Like, he's so much more experienced than Trey. Like, yeah, that's true. But at the same time, like, I don't necessarily, if they're both going against the Niners starting defense, if the conditions are exactly the same, is Darnold necessarily going to complete like 65% of his throws while Trey completes 55%? Maybe. But if that's the case, then Darnold wins, because it seems like where they're coming from is a place where both have had issues being efficient in the passing game. Both guys have had issues in games being efficient. So fair competition to me.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It's not like you're bringing in a guy who like just completes 70% of his throws and checks it down. It's like, well, how do I look better than him in practice when all he's going to do is check it down and the spreadsheet's going to say he couldn't miss? Like, that's not really Darnold.
But it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Like, you look at, there's just so many people that are painting Darnold in this one light. The only thing that I'll say is, like, you look what he did. Think of it this way. People look at Kyle Shanahan's offense as kind of like a cheat code, right? About his ability to get guys wide open.
Until you get hurt. Until you have surgery.
But forget about that. But come on, Grant, damn it. But you know what I'm saying.
But you're right. No, I totally agree. Your numbers will go off the charts. You're right.
Because of him. He makes everybody run.
Right.
So
no doubt.
The only time that Darnold's been in that situation, really, was, I think, maybe the first 3 games of his time in Carolina, because he had really good players around him, and nobody knew quite what Matt Rule and that offense was going to be, right? Mm-hmm. And his numbers were off the charts for those 3 weeks. Now, they fell off later on in the season, but at that point, it was kind of a cheat code a little bit. So maybe that's what Sam Darnold's going to be. Maybe he's able to put up 68% completion rate and all that kind of stuff, because those first 3 games of the 2021 season, he averaged over 300 yards of offense a game.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like, we compare him to Steve Young and stuff, like guys who have turned themselves around. What we know about Steve Young's one of the most confident athletes we've ever seen. He had an unwavering self-belief. Jeff Garcia was this way too. Like, not only do I not suck, but like, I'm great. And I don't understand why the Bucs are not letting me express this. Like, I don't know if Darnold might be more like Alex Smith. Like, hey, I don't suck, but like, I don't know if I'm great. Like, I could be pretty good. You know what I'm saying? Like, he might be like that. You know what I'm saying? Whereas Brock had this crazy confidence, like, no, I'm great. And I'm like, what? Why do you think that? You were the last pick in the draft. And Trey, I don't know if he thinks that, but working with Patrick Mahomes, you kind of get the feeling like he's trying to measure up and see if he measures up. I don't know if Darnold has that mentality. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the best quarterbacks will have that. I'm the best.
Yes.
I'm the guy.
I'm the freaking best. Like, Steve thought he should have been playing over Joe like that whole time.
Right. Yeah, and Randy Cross says in the thing, no, not so much, Steve.
Nah, dude. Like, this guy's my Super Bowl.
It's funny because, here's the thing really quick on the comparison of Young to Darnold and that kind of stuff. The only reason that Young got brought into that is because of the talking point. It's really more of Alex Smith and Sam Darnold. The reason that Steve Young got kind of lumped into that was because the discussion of the turnovers in college was there. And so Young happened to put out, his numbers against when he was with the Bucs were awful. And then you look at his numbers in college, and his numbers in college turned the ball over a lot there as well. He turned the ball over a lot in the USFL, turned around when he got to the 49ers. That's the only reason. Steve Young.
No, I totally see the Steve Young thing. There's a lot of parallels to Alex Smith for sure. But still, the highest there was for Alex Smith was the high-level game manager, and he eventually got replaced by what the Niners want Trey Lance to be. Yeah. So ideally with Sam Darnold, like, he's still not your guy, ideally, in my opinion. But even if he turns out to be great.
And then he ended up, no, he's not, I don't think he's the guy that you're necessarily wanting to. That is, like, going back to your Jimmy Garoppolo mistake, if he goes out there, tears it up, and they give this guy a 5-year, $100 million contract, yes, that's a mistake.
It's like, oh, no, don't do that. Tell me you learned nothing from the Jimmy Garoppolo era without telling me you learned nothing from the Jimmy Garoppolo. But we're not there yet. And I don't want to get too down on Darnold. All my point was that I think it's a fair competition for Trey. And honestly, if you can't beat out Sam Darnold, like,
what are we doing?
I don't say, bud.
Yeah.
He's not that good. I mean, he's just not. It's not that good. And you know what? If he takes the leap and you can't, what does that say about you? So Trey, it's time to do it, dude. You got it. And I think I'm betting on Trey. If I had to bet who's going to win this competition, but the other thing that is in my mind is is the winner of this competition the loser of this competition? Because the winner of this competition has to face Pittsburgh week 1, and if you lose that game, it kind of feels like you lost the competition. Like you're done. You're done right now. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we'll see. We'll find out. I've put it out there. My thing is, I think that Purdy's going to be the starter week 1. I put that out there about a month ago. I think that everything's trending in the right direction. I could be completely wrong, and that's one of the fun parts about doing this. It's okay to put stuff out there and be wrong, and understand if you understand that you're wrong.
Sure.
So we'll see. I think he can. We'll see what happens June 2nd, but everything kind of seems to be pointing towards him being on the good track. And I just kind of think that the middle of August makes a lot of sense for him to return, if based off of other guys that have dealt with UCL injuries like what he's dealt with.
Yeah. Again, I'm a conspiracy theorist at heart, and I feel, not really, but I just feel like whatever the official story is the team gives you is not the real truth. And to me, like, they can say whatever they want, but the smart play here is to not play Brock and to use him as an excuse. Shanahan's are good at this. You always need an excuse just in case things go wrong. What if Brock goes out there, doesn't play well, you have a 6-11 season? What's your excuse? You said Brock was ready. He played. Now you got no quarterbacks. But if you don't play Brock, you play the other two and you go 6-11, worst case scenario, you can say, look, Brock just wasn't ready. He's coming back next year. We're going to win the Super Bowl. You can't fire me. We're going to win the Super Bowl next year. What's the problem? So I don't know. That's what I think is going to happen, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm calling my shot.
It's a good theory.
I'm calling my shot. They wouldn't say it, of course. They're just going to string us along. Oh, yeah, he'll be back in 2 weeks. Lamonte757 says, we win game 1 versus Bears if Deebo. Do we get that? Get that? Play the kid now? Yeah. Brock's arm was about as strong as Mullins. Doesn't it make sense that those max effort throwers got the exact same UCL injury? Yeah, but he didn't injure his arm in max effort. He got injured his arm because Hassan Reddick ripped it off.
Yeah, both guys' arm injuries didn't have anything to do with
the same play.
Yeah. Didn't have anything to do
Mullins
with
was McGlinchey's fault. I haven't forgotten.
Was it McGlinchey? Yeah.
It was McGlinchey's fault. This one, it's hard to say it's Tyler Cross' fault. I feel like it was more Kyle's fault. Or just you could say Hassan Reddick's fault. Or you could say Trey Williams' fault for tipping the play. It's up to you. You can blame all of them.
You can even blame Deebo for not breaking off where he's supposed to go and help blocking and all kinds of different things. There's
who was that? It was JT. JT saw that one. I was like, okay.
He was talking.
Hey, it's a team sport, right? Takes all 11. Executing. It takes all 11. Khalil Kemp says, hide the rest of the yams in my auntie house. Oh, yeah. I should have known that. Should have known that. That's Young Jeezy, right? It's Young Jeezy. But he goes by just regular Jeezy now. Lil Boozy just goes by regular Boozy now because they're not so young or little anymore. Manny Fresh says, why are we really wasting our time with Darnold? That's a good question to me. I would have, after having the success with Purdy, I would have drafted another quarterback. I would have been like, okay, we found something here. We want the guy on a rookie deal, and he needs to be experienced. There's a type of young quarterback, the experienced young guy. Let's get that guy. Instead, you got the experienced NFL guy for $3.5 million who could make 11 if he plays well. Like, you could have had a guy on a 4-year deal making bupkis. But you didn't. You passed. See, I would have done that. But they wanted experience. They wanted an experienced guy. And Darnold special.
Seen him get a guy in the draft.
I would have got Darnold.
He can spin it.
They chose USC over UCLA. Always a big mistake. Always a big mistake choosing USC over UCLA. You just don't do that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know. The USC guy wasn't in the one of those USC guys was an All-Pro last year. So maybe
there's a long line of great UCLA quarterbacks, starting with, and then moving on to, and then there was this other. There's so many. I mean, I can't even name them all. There's so many great UCLA quarterbacks. Cade McNown.
Troy
hell yeah!
He was a hell of a hander offer.
He was the original game manager. J-Rod 5 says, I should develop Trey and Madden into a 99 and the GOAT as his coach, which means I should be head coach. You get to be his head coach, but you have to you have to be in a Spider-Man suit on the sideline. That would be really cool. Ignore the first should. I developed Trey and Madden to a 99. When I played Madden 04 a lot, I want to say, and I would build my own team, and I would draft Kyle Bowler late, and I would turn him into a 99. That guy had a cannon.
Kyle Bowler.
Freaking cannon.
The original guy that could throw it like from the 50-yard line on his knees and
from
over
his
the
knees.
Goalpost.
Hell yeah. Rod Simmons says, Trey and Ayuk were an item, it seems, going into last season. Who will his 3 go-to guys be in order? Be, in your opinion, guys? It's badass Boosie, Grant. It's true. He's not regular Boosie. He's Boosie badass with 2 Z's. Who will be his 3 go-to guys? We'll see. We shall see.
I think Ayuk is still Ayuk and Kittle. Kittle makes a lot of sense.
Hey, if you want to get a completion in practice to goose up your completion percentage, don't throw to Deebo. Sorry. No one counts the yak yards in practice. No one knows.
That's right.
Honestly.
Ayuk's going to, I think, be right
also,
there.
Jennings is a drop waiting to happen in practice. Don't know how he turns it on in games because, wow. He is a drop waiting to happen. Love you, Jawan. You're a hell of a player. Gamer. All right. I have a question that's going to irk Niner fans after I spent the last 6 years trying to get this guy out of town. Are the Niners going to miss Jimmy Garoppolo this season? And by miss, I mean he was the steadying presence in their locker room. He didn't get too high or too low. He had that same smile after every win, every loss, every touchdown, every interception. Looked exactly the same. Kind of an asset in football. The team believed in him, which is a huge asset in football. They knew they could win with him. They don't really know that with Trey or Darnold. And, if Brock comes back, great, but we don't know about that. Assuming Brock doesn't come back, and this is the Trey and Sam show. I think they'd be looking at Vegas being like,
based on what you said and the kind of the way you set it up, I would say like if Brock Purdy's healthy and Brock Purdy's the guy, then they don't miss him because I think they see
Jimmy
Brock's kind of this. Yeah, they see him as being like that steady and influence kind of guy. They feel like they know.
They believe in him. They won playoff games with him. They won 2 playoff games with him. Yeah.
If it's one of the other 2 guys, then I think there's a little bit more question mark, at least in the beginning, until you start winning games.
Right, because it's easy to be confident when you're 3-4, 3-5. When you have Jimmy there and you've been in the playoffs with him and you've pulled it out. It's like, okay, we can do it now. But like if you're 3-4 and your quarterback's Trey or Darnold, like doesn't a little bit of panic set in? Like, we don't know this guy. And he's not playing so great. Like, because Jimmy didn't always play so great early in the seasons, but it was like, he's going to turn it around. He's done it before. Like, you can't just assume that with Sam Darnold or Trey Lance. All of a sudden, like, there could be some puckering that goes around October. Like, especially if Jimmy Garoppolo's like healthy and playing well and winning in Vegas. Wouldn't that be the end all be all?
Well, I don't know about winning. I expect he's going to play okay out there. He's not like the head coach out there is a dummy. I think he'll fit in fine out there. But
people just hate him. Sorry.
As far as like you said, yeah. If you get into October and you're 3-5, I think there's definitely a pucker factor. That it was there with Garoppolo.
Definite pucker.
Yeah, definitely. There was a little bit of that in 21 and even last year. At 3-4 with Garoppolo around. So without him, I think it might be a little bit more of a little bit tighter.
A little bit tighter. Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like Jimmy, he wasn't good enough. He ultimately wasn't good enough, but what he was a total known quantity. You knew what you were going to get. You knew you could get to the playoffs with him. And now the Niners just have question marks at quarterback, 3 question marks for different reasons. And it must be terrifying. It must have been nice to know, like, hey, all goes wrong. We could throw Jimmy back out there, go to the playoffs. Everyone looks like it's a successful season. No one's criticizing us. Can't say that this year. Like, there is a scenario where things go really, really horribly wrong. Despite having this great team, and everyone's like, how did that happen? Oh, yeah, quarterback position matters. And you blew it. So, I don't know. And then Jimmy's over there in Vegas like, ha, ha, ha. Getting the last laugh.
Yeah, no, it could be. If these guys stay healthy, I don't think you're really going to miss them all that much. But, I do think that there's a possibility of it. And, man, wouldn't it be something if the Raiders turn it around, make the playoffs, and go do really well?
It'd be crazy. Because, again, coming back to the beginning of the show, the reason the Niners gave the public, the number one reason for why Jimmy wasn't good enough was the durability stuff. So God forbid he goes to Vegas, stays healthy, and all these quarterbacks on the Niners get hurt again. Like, that would be really bad for the brand in a lot of ways. So got to make sure that doesn't happen. Kyle, got to protect your quarterbacks. Otherwise, people are going to eventually look at you as the common denominator. And somehow, year 7, you've escaped all of that. Everyone's in your corner. They believe you got 3 good quarterbacks, and you just got to figure out which one is the best. I'm over here being like, we'll see. But I want to give Kyle the benefit of the doubt because back-to-back NFC Championship games, right? Deserve a little.
Super Bowl or championship game 3 of the last 4 years. And
sure.
If you got,
I'm a little worried that this could be 2020 all over again, but
yeah,
that was just a one-off.
Again, that 2020 would be your starting quarterback get knocked out week 2, and
happened last year,
and not having anybody that's able to step in behind him.
Depends on what you think of Sam Darnold, where Brock Purdy's at. Yeah, it could happen. Or again, Brock Purdy come back, and this is like all a bunch of off-season speculation about nothing. Brock Purdy shows up for training camp, looks good. He's like, what were you guys worried about? We told you I was coming back. Like, I didn't move with arm strength to begin with. Like, I'm throwing 7-yard passes anyway. Like, I'm running towards my target as I throw the ball. I'm shortening who knows? It could be that simple. The Niners almost won a Super Bowl running the ball 4 years ago, and you could argue they would have if they had just kept running the ball. You know what I mean? Like, maybe they're the anomaly in the NFL. Maybe they are. Who knows? I don't know.
Well, really quick, in terms of being an anomaly, that's what their new defense coordinator said when we talked to him last week.
They want to be
about, the difficult nature of going up against Kyle Shanahan was his ability to stay committed to the run, which he normally does, like until big games.
Until the very end of the season.
As you pointed out, until the end of the season, when the game's on the line, whether it's the Super Bowl against the Patriots or the Super Bowl against the Chiefs or the NFC Championship game against the Rams, when Kyle's pucker factor hasn't been very good.
Yeah, it's crazy because and that's again the pucker factor. I think is what is the main theme of this conversation. The one thing you got to give Jimmy, did he pucker in the fourth quarter, or did he just get exposed? Like, I just felt Jimmy wasn't that good. And it would come out in the playoffs because the playoffs are more difficult. And the way Kyle would pucker is he'd be working around Jimmy's, he'd be minimizing Jimmy and winning in spite of Jimmy. And it's like, wow, you're really doing it. You're really good, Kyle. Like, wow, you are what everyone says you are. And then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter up 10, you're like, all right, Jimmy, it's your time. Like, what? What are you talking about? It's not Jimmy's time. It's never going to be Jimmy's time. It's your time, Kyle. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't understand him.
Yeah.
He's too complicated for me.
Less than halfway, over halfway through the fourth quarter, you're up by 10 with the ball, and just.
Oh, it's not like Deebo was averaging 19 yards a carry, or Mostert. It's not like he wasn't averaging 5 yards a carry. It's like,
But the problem was they ran that ball that one time and they only gained 2 yards, and so that meant on 2nd and 8, it just wasn't an option because the defense was showing they were going to stop the run, and they were, we just didn't have enough. They forced us to throw the ball because we can't actually dictate to them. We've got to
right. And Kyle called plays, but Jimmy killed to the passes. Like Kyle couldn't give him 2 runs to check. Like whatever. Whatever.
Yeah, the water carriers for Kyle Shanahan are the best.
They could have won the Super Bowl running the darn ball. That's their identity. They flinched. Hey, kind of like the 2 teams that lost the Super Bowl with 10-point second half leads, Niners and Eagles. Very similar teams. And how do the Eagles flinch in the second half? They stop going for it on 4th down. That's who you are. All of a sudden you're punting. Oh, and you give up a long punt return, right? Because you don't do that. That's what you get. You got to stick to it because you can't beat the Chiefs playing straight up football. They have the best quarterback in the league. What are you going to do? Pass better than them? How? It's impossible. You can't beat them another way. Got to find a way.
you've got to be nearly perfect against them. And
Got to be.
You can't give them points on defense and special teams. And
hell no, definitely
on offense and special teams. Excuse me.
Lucky Luciano says Trey Lance has no choice but to put in the work and show out. The 5th-year option is right around the corner. He's also got that long-term bag on the line. Yep. It's funny how quickly life comes at you in the NFL. He got drafted. He was technically 20 years old. He must have thought, man, I'm going to be in this league forever. And now look at you, dude. Now you're like, dude, I'm fighting for my life with Sam Darnold. Either me or him's going to be gone eventually. Like, who is the survivor on this island? Gotta love that.
Uh-huh.
Manny Fresh says, can't win a bowl with Purdy, won't beat any AFC quarterbacks.
Well, the good thing about that is you don't have to beat the quarterback because you don't play defense. I mean, I don't know. Jimmy Garoppolo beat Joe Burrow, if you want to call it that way. I mean, if you want to say that. You know.
So yeah, on the Niners, like it's not about the quarterback. You're a cog in the system. I mean, it's almost more about the running back than it is about the quarterback. A lot of your throws are extended handoffs anyway. Yeah. Yep. It's like, just don't mess it up. Frank Tom Ocean says, who do you think the team captains will be? Oh, okay.
Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Talon Hufanga.
That would be one.
Does Hufanga come up?
That would be one. Instead of Armstead, does he finally? Is Armstead? Yep. They love Armstead, man. He is the big uncle in that locker room. I feel like. Was
Bosa captain last year? I don't remember.
I don't know. I think he was. I think he was because he was giving speeches and stuff. Anyway.
Okay.
J-Rod 5 says, deal. We want to see this picture, baby. There's so much potential there.
There is. It's fantastic.
All right. Well, I do appreciate the 49ers for hyping up each quarterback one at a time. You know, it's kind of like when you go to a restaurant and you order 3 things, but you want it to come out in courses, but they just give it to you all at once. It's like, this is great, but kind of would like, you know, an orderly fashion. So we got to gorge out on Brock Purdy and the S2 news. That was great for about a month. Everyone talked about that. Then it was Sam Darnold being the greatest thrower, and everyone loves him. And now it's Trey Lance's turn. And you know what? None of it means anything. We'll see for ourselves. And Tuesday, the Niners said it today. Tuesday is the open practice. They'll have practices Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. Tuesday, baby. So we'll all know. And hey, Jack, here's what I propose. Me and you are both going to be there. Do you want to do like an instant reaction simulcast together Tuesday evening when we get home?
Yeah.
Or if we can do it at the stadium.
If we can do it at the stadium,
to be quick.
For me.
To be quick.
Because it takes me about 3 hours to get home.
My God, that's dedication, baby. That's dedication. That's a commute. You guys want a reason to give Jack some super chats? 3-hour commute, one way. Where you live in Tahoe?
Getting out of the Bay Area on at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon is no fun.
Oh, it's rough. That's true. Yes. That is the truth. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. See you soon.
Take care, everybody.